Welcome to the Madness and Grace podcast, where we explore the connection between mental health and faith. I'm Dr. Matthew Stanford, neuroscientist, author, and mental health advocate.
And I'm Dr. Madeline Stiers, therapist and trauma researcher. We're so glad you're joining us today. Each week, we have authentic conversations about personal stories, we share professional insights, and explore the meaningful ways faith can influence mental well-being.
Whether you're seeking comfort, understanding, or simply a new perspective, we're here to journey with you. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's dive into today's conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Madness and Grace. And we're very happy that you're joining us. Today we got a good topic, a topic that we talk a lot about around here at the Hope and Healing Center. And we just wanted to kind of have this conversation so we could have you start thinking about it as well. And that's lay counseling and pastoral care. And then particularly how and when do you seek professional help? And so we're very big advocates of lay counseling and churches or pastoral care teams in churches or pastoral counseling in churches, and really see that as an important part of the mental health care system if it can be set up in that way. But when do you move a person from lay counseling to professional care? So one of the things I would say is that, less than 25% of churches in the United States have any type of formal mental health related ministry, and that includes lay counseling. But we certainly know that people in psychological distress that are struggling with mental health problems are more likely to go to a clergy before they go to a mental health care provider or a physician. So it's something that churches should really be thinking about because God is sending people to us, and I think we should be equipped and prepared to minister them effectively. So just to jump off, I would say that there has been quite a bit of research done around the effectiveness of lay counseling and in a really large meta-analysis, which is an analysis of multiple studies, they actually found that there was a pretty significant clinical effect for individuals on depression, anxiety, and PTSD that were actually meeting regularly with the lay counselors. And so this isn't just a good idea, it's an effective idea. And I think we should really talk about it more in churches.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that recently just kind of came up again, I know we hear it a lot, is the concept of clergy being the support for people who are struggling. And so there's spiritual support for individuals who are struggling spiritually, which is a part of the human experience and being, definitely can impact our mental health. But I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot, and the endeavors that we are doing here at the Hope and Healing Center to train clergy and lay people on mental health, creating some sort of support in the church and then helping people to refer to professionals when needed. A lot of what we hear is, well, aren't clergy trained to do that?
Right. Yeah.
Shouldn't the clergy be doing that? And we just got a paper back for revision, and that was one of the comments on there. And it kind of shocked me because the journal that we had submitted it to was it was on the same topic, mental health and religion, spirituality, and their comment was, why is this important? Wouldn't clergy be able to handle this? And
right.
I'm going,
no.
Well, wow, no.
And so...
Not at all. But, lay counseling and having pastoral care, obviously we're not, diminishing those in any way, shape, or form. But,
right.
How do you create it within a space that's meaningful and effective, and then also educate these individuals to refer out when needed? And,
right. Well, I mean, with that, just to kind of close the loop on that question that was asked in this article that we just submitted as a research article. And so, number one, when you survey clergy, the vast majority of clergy say, I do not feel equipped to deal with people that have mental health problems. That doesn't mean they don't provide pastoral care. It doesn't mean they don't provide pastoral counseling. They just don't feel like their training is adequate to be able to see somebody that has a mental health problem on an ongoing basis. And then secondly, just from a logistics perspective, I mean, most churches are 75 people or less on a Sunday morning. Most churches are not a large body with a whole bunch of, staff. And so you don't want to have one single individual that has to see everybody on an ongoing basis. That's just not sustainable. We already see that in the mental health care system. It's not sustainable. So there's all kind of problems with that kind of question. So even if clergy were trained, to be effective at this, we would have a logistics problem alone. Everybody would be going to that person, and they would not be able to be the pastor anymore. They would just have to be a counselor. And so this is, I think for us at the Hope and Healing Center here, we really like to think about mental health ministry as kind of congregational ministry. And so the more you can equip congregants, really the better it is, because it's a body. It's not supposed to be, a bunch of people that have a meeting and then we hire some people to do all the work. It's supposed to be a body that everybody has a role and everybody has an important role. So one of the things I would say is when we talk about lay counseling, there are different models of lay counseling or pastoral care. At one level, there's just kind of this very informal approach where kind of you just meet with people within your fellowship or people that need assistance, and you just meet with them in a very informal way. Maybe you meet with them at a coffee shop or at a library or wherever, and you just have conversations and you just support them. And that's tremendously important. There's nothing wrong with that. And probably those people have never received any formal training related to mental health, but the encouragement of that, really, I think that is something that the faith community should be doing, encouraging people to be willing to share, encouraging people to be willing to be present and listen. I think at another level, kind of if you step up one, there would be some formal training from the faith community for their congregants or for a smaller team, but no particular ongoing supervision. So maybe everybody is kind of trained to recognize a mental health care problem and what to do for a person who might has that. This kind of the paper that Maddie just mentioned that we had that had that funny question from the reviewer, but it was about a program like that. And then finally, there'll be a higher level of lay counseling. We have a very formal lay counseling ministry. All the people in that ministry receive formal training, and then they get some supervision from probably staff at the church, and it's done in a very formal way. So I think all three of those levels really should be in place within a faith community, because I think it makes it less likely someone's going to fall through the cracks. It also allows people access to support that's absolutely free and very easy to access, when in many instances people are unable to afford any kind of care. And if you then added into that support groups that are led by lay counselors or what we call mental health coaches here or whatever, you really are offering some therapeutic support at the faith community level that's just so easy to access and costs nothing that it really prepares people.
It's so easy to train a facilitator.
Absolutely.
If you we've got developed curriculum here at the Hope and Healing Center so you don't have to come in as a professional and no one's expecting you to be a professional. We actually are saying you're not a professional, but you've got some information and some structure to guide through some weeks of support and really facilitate conversation and support within this body of people who need the support, right? In a free and accessible way. I think it's lovely. I always, this is just a pet peeve of mine. I don't know how you feel about it. Probably the same, but I understand therapy needs to cost. Sometimes people need, it's a profession. I understand that. But when I see providers charging for support groups, it really just irks me. A therapy group, I can understand, but there's a difference. A support group is the members of the group are there really kind of supporting each other and giving lived experience, and you're charging for that. So
yeah, we don't charge for support. That's ridiculous. So,
no.
But listen to I made a little list here. A lot of times people will ask me, which again, I wish they wouldn't, because I wish they would already know this, but they would ask me, well, why should a church be involved in this kind of thing? To me, that's a short-sighted view of what a church ought to be involved. I think a church ought to be involved in everything, because
shouldn't the clergy just do that?
Exactly. So, here's just a list of scriptures that I made and just a little summary. So Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens. James 5:14 and 16 says, if anyone is sick, call the elders and pray. 1 Thessalonians 5:14, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak. Proverbs 11:15, 20, seek counsel, telling you to seek counsel from others. 2 Corinthians 1:3 and 4, comfort others as God comforts us. Romans 12:15, weep with those who weep. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 talks about two are better than one, because if one falls, the other can help them up. It talks about being there for one another. We could just go on and on and on. and, being there to offer support. And what am I talking about when I say offer support? I mean, just being present, listening, maybe,
That
maybe offering some advice or guidance, but just being present to listen and try to empathize with what a person is going through can be tremendously therapeutic. So,
oh,
lay counseling is really something that I think at one time was much more common in churches. And I think, if I had to guess, and this is an educated guess because we do a lot with churches, I really think that what has happened is that churches have decided for one of two reasons not to really have these things anymore. And one is we don't want those kind of people here. And I've heard that more than one time and from pastors. And that's people with mental health problems. And number two, well, that's not something for the church to do. That's something that you would go to a mental health care provider for. There's nothing we can do for them here. And both of those are horrible answers. They're both wrong. People with mental health problems are already in churches. They're in your congregation. You don't have to go out and find them. They're already there. And number two, there's an enormous amount that the church can do. And I really think that's related to the fact that people are more likely to go there first. So we have an opportunity to really help them.
it's the idea that you hear, come as you are, unless you're not like us, then don't come.
Then don't come. So that's right.
And the like us
or go fix
is a
yourself.
false, is a false idea, right? Because like you said, you don't have to go find people who are struggling with their mental health. They're there. They're in your congregation. They're there. They're looking to you for guidance and support. And so if those are the narratives that you're giving, you may be doing harm unknowingly to some of your congregants.
So if you're thinking about setting up lay counseling out there or a pastoral care team, I have to say, if I have my personal view, I don't really like the term lay counseling because I think it kind of implies it may be more related to professional counseling. I like pastoral care. I like pastoral care teams. We use the term mental health coaching. Coaching is kind of a hot topic for a while. But, what does that look like? Well, I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have, and we'll put in the notes for this podcast, we have training that you can access. One, to just train your clergy, your ministry staff, your congregants on how to recognize, how to refer, how to relate to somebody in distress, things like that. And then we also have our mental health coach training that you can access where you can have more intensely trained individuals that can work one-on-one and really kind of take that burden. But there are also other ones available. You could go, Stephen's Ministry is one that's available commercially that has a great reputation. They used to have Stephen's Ministry in the church when I was growing up, and it's been around for a long, long time. There's a lot of different ones out there, and that's just another one that we run into quite often. But you also can develop your own. And I think one of the things for pastors to think about is, I think it's wonderful if pastors have the opportunity, given the size of their church, to meet with individuals and provide that kind of pastoral care, guidance, counsel. I do think that that's unsustainable in a church of any size. And so I also think that you have to get your congregants involved in ministry. And this is a great ministry. Supporting one another is kind of the most basic of all ministries. And so be that during grief, be that during a divorce, be that during financial problems, be that during a mental health problem, be that during a problem with a child. I mean, there's just so many opportunities to support one another. And that's one of the big problems in our society today is loneliness is one of the biggest issues. And people, because of, the way we're all so interconnected via, kind of information technology and social media and things like that, we really don't engage people personally. And I think that's something that the church can really step in and say, hey, you know what, we're going to have a pastoral care team. We're going to, have people here that can work with you for X number of weeks or whatever. They can help you find mental health care providers. They can, really be the church. We can be that healing community that walks along with one another.
I mean, I think to your point, to assume that one clergy or all of the clergy are going to be the people that are bearing this weight of a whole church is unsustainable. You have to get the community involved, and there will be people in each church that are interested, whether they have the time, I don't know, but that want to see this ministry come. They have been impacted by mental health in their life, either themselves or a loved one, in a significant way. And this conversation starts to happen, you're going to get people's ears perking up going, oh my gosh, I could help with that. Like, I have some experience in that. And I remember the support that I got either here or elsewhere. And I'd love to be able to transfer that on. We see the families. So we have our Families Transformed group here at the clinic that we run. Our interns run those. And it's usually parents of adult children who are struggling with their mental health, and young adults, usually 20s, 30s. And these families come together and really, really rally around each other because they're struggling with, while the situations can look extremely different, they're struggling with very similar concepts within those mental health challenges, or being a caregiver or trying not to be a caregiver and launch a child who's really kind of struggling from some significant challenges. And we see these parents finding new groups of social support that understand this area of their lives. It doesn't mean that they don't have their other social supports as well, but it really becomes a community for.
Absolutely. It's a family.
It's a wonderful thing to see.
And it improves their quality of life, and it grows their faith, and it better equips them to care for whoever this individual is that they're struggling to care for in their family, be it their child or whoever, and themselves, right?
It really just supports the family system, in a way that the church is intended to do.
And it costs no money, and can be led by a layman. And we have the training available here. We have the curricula available here. So it is, the only reason people would not do these things in their church is because they have some misconception that they're either not needed or they're somehow bad, like they're going to be a bad thing for the church. But the reality is, I'm not making it up when I tell you that people are more likely to go to a clergy before they go to a mental health care provider or physician. That's something that's been known for decades, found by the federal government in large epidemiology studies. And if you're in a church if you're a pastor or you're in a church and you would say, well, I've never heard of anybody coming here for that, they don't walk in and say, I woke up this morning and I have bipolar disorder. They have other symptoms that are showing up. I lost a job. I'm not getting along with my wife, whatever. We just have to be trained to be aware of these things. And we're not talking about, beginning to offer professional care at your church. That was the old model from the old days where, if a church wanted to offer quote unquote counseling, they would hire a counseling pastor that also had a license, and they would probably set up a counseling center. And that, that's just unnecessary. Well, this is something that we've learned can be done by laymen at a lower level. And then if a person needs professional care, they can be connected to someone in the community to receive that professional care, but still continue to receive support and guidance and advocacy and spiritual help right there in the church. And so, I really want, I don't think I can say it enough. I'm really encouraging you out there that are pastors or decision makers at faith communities to put in place some type of pastoral care team or lay counseling or mental health coaches or whatever you might call it. And we are here to help you.
And I think people may hear this, clergy or individuals in the church may hear this and misunderstand and hear, you need to set up a crisis response support group for people who are having a mental health crisis.
No, yeah.
And that's absolutely not what we're saying. A crisis is life and death, the hospitalization level. That is meant for professionals who are trained and are educated and licensed in this field. We're talking about being proactive. People do not have access to mental health care in this country at the levels that it's needed, or they don't have the resources financially to access them, even though, online telehealth is now makes things much more accessible. Financially, people still can't afford it. I know a therapy session on average is about $250. That's on average. That's a lot. So we're not talking about a crisis response group, for someone who comes in and is, talking about some pretty extreme things. We're talking about putting in place support so people can access that before
Right.
all of the stress of life compounds and they do have a mental health crisis and or the stress kind of explodes and they start having panic attack kinds of things, because we don't oftentimes have options for that. I mean, we have the Hope Line, which is open, I think we've said 1,000 times on here. It's every night, 365 days a year, open from 5 to 8 p.m. Central Time. It's English and Spanish. You can call and get 30 minutes free of someone, a coach, a mental health coach who is a lightly trained individual. They're not licensed providers, but they're there for support before someone reaches crisis.
Right.
And so when you're hearing this, what Matt and I are saying, don't take it as you need to be the front line for people who are or who
Right.
need to be hospitalized and all of the people who are walking in with psychosis that need to be on medicine.
Bunch
No.
of suicidal people running into your church looking for help.
Right.
That's not.
And you're like, come, we'll save you. No, absolutely not. It's a place for everyone who's struggling, so we don't start to see crisis level symptoms or
It's catching things early. And it
Absolutely.
almost could be looked, I mean, you almost in some sense could refer to it as preventative, so,
It is preventative,
if a person, you don't get to a depression that's driven by environmental issues. You don't get to that one day you're fine and the next day you're in the deep, dark depression. There's a process, a progress that happens over time. And so, what if that person had the opportunity to talk to somebody very early in that process? Just like if someone who does need professional care, what if they were able to talk to somebody very early in the development of their problem and that person recognized that and was able to move them on to professional care? It makes it less likely they're going to have to be hospitalized. It makes it more likely that they're going to recover. It makes it less likely that they're going to struggle at a more intense level. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said here, and I think you can look at it as preventative. You also can look at it as very evangelistic. This is an opportunity, and Maddie and I can speak to this probably for the rest of this podcast if we wanted to. All of the hundreds of churches, at this point probably over 1,000 churches, that we have trained individuals at and put these types of things in place, those that fully engage this will tell you their churches grow because of this, because they tend to then offer these kind of supportive services to people in their community. They're advertising support groups or advertising pastoral care or lay counseling or, having workshops. And they're not just doing this internally within the church. They'll do it for the community around their church. And they find people are coming in because they want that kind of a faith community. They want a place where they can heal. They want a place where they can be open about things they struggle with, and that other people are supportive of that. So it is, this is a great opportunity. And I always will get back to the fact that people that are struggling with these types of issues or any type of psychological distress are more likely to go to a clergy before they go to a mental health care provider or physician. So we really need to be prepared. And really what you have to tell yourself right now is that we're just not doing a good job. I mean, individuals that are struggling in your church, if they have to just go talk to the senior pastor, if that's their only option, that's not a very well laid out process. I mean, so it has to be. The other thing is, wouldn't a senior pastor like to have some of that burden carried by others within the church? And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to equip congregants. The other thing is that, we're talking about an integrated kind of faith-based approach to support, where there's an opportunity to help people grow spiritually as well, and share the gospel, share the hope of Christ. Hope building is a huge part of offering support, because I'm telling you, mental health issues are, at any level, low level up to full-blown mental disorder, they just destroy your hope. And, there's no better place to find hope than a faith community.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this episode and you're interested in learning a little bit more, I would say check out our websites. They will be listed in the show notes today, and you can check out. We've got some different trainings available. We've got some shorter ones that can kind of do a quick equip of information to help you kind of understand what the next steps might be to kind of working towards getting some groups going or offering some care or support in your community. Or just share this episode with some of the decision makers in your church and say, hey, what do you think about this? What could this look like? I think there's still a lot of stigma in these spaces in churches around mental health, and people are wary of it because they're nervous and concerned. And but like Matt said, the churches that have successfully implemented this see a growth because it's something that the community is looking for. It's just another level of support and care and attending to a person's whole self, not just their spiritual self, in a way that's ethical for the church to do. So we appreciate you guys being here today. We'll put the notes in, or the websites, the links to the trainings in the show notes. And thanks again for listening with us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining our conversation on this episode of the Madness and Grace podcast. If you found value in our discussion today, we'd love it if you'd subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode.
And if you enjoyed what you heard, please consider leaving us a rating and review. It helps others find these important conversations.
Sharing this podcast with friends and family members is also a wonderful way to extend hope to those who might be struggling with mental health concerns.
We'll be back next time with another candid conversation about madness and grace. See you then.